The thinnest product Apple has ever made, with a new Tandem OLED display powered by the brand new M4 chip and a new squeezable Apple Pencil. This is the new 2024 iPad Pro, one of the first unboxing videos with this in the world, so a thumbs up for your boy would be appreciated. Let's get it unboxed and see what it has to offer. Now right away you're going to notice that we have a much thinner box than we normally would have had, and it's not just down to the thinner iPad. So initially you are presented with the iPad, which we'll put to the side for a second. There's a pack with lots of different paperwork for all of the different languages, but no Apple sticker. I think this is the first time I've unboxed an Apple product without an Apple sticker. I'm not sure why this is. And then we have a nice braided USB Type-C to USB Type-C cable. This one is black because I have the Space Black iPad Pro. But if you do get the silver version of the iPad Pro, then you'll get a white cable. And that's it. No charger. So Apple started the trend of not including chargers with their iPhones a few years ago. Now this trend is coming over on to the iPads. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. And here it is. Now this Space Black version is definitely more of a darker gray. I've got a 13-inch version here, but it's also available in an 11-inch version. And honestly guys, I can't emphasize how impressive it is that it's just 5.1 millimeters thin. And that makes it the thinnest Apple product ever, and it brings it closer to Apple's vision of having just a magic sheet of glass. I think we're getting very close here. Now, Apple have managed to achieve this thinness because of three main things: the new Tandem OLED display, the M4 chip, which is now more efficient and in turn allows for a smaller battery, but giving you the same battery life as the M2 version of the iPad Pro. How much smaller is the battery? Well, we're gonna have to wait and see until somebody opens this up. That's not gonna be me. Now, a question that a lot of people have understandably been asking is, how durable is this gonna be because it's just so thin? No, Zach, you're not snapping mine, you can snap your own. Well, Apple did say in their keynote that this is just as durable as the previous generation. I am not gonna be bending mine in half. Trust me, I know there's lots of people that will be, but realistically speaking, if you're gonna try to bend any tablet that's this sort of form factor, then it is going to snap in half, so don't do that. How durable is this gonna be over time? Is it gonna have a slight bend? We're gonna have to wait and see, but I'm assuming that most people will be using this 99% of the time in a case, maybe the Smart Folio or the Magic Keyboard. This new, more compact design also means that this is quite a bit lighter compared to the previous generation iPad Pro, over 100 grams. Let's now take a look at the display. Firstly, we have small uniform bezels. Now, some people laugh at me when I say small bezels on an iPad, but you have to remember that this is a tablet, it's not a smartphone. With a tablet, you need somewhere to hold, and I think physically, this is probably the smallest we could go with the bezels without it being impractical for a tablet. This display still has ProMotion technology, so 120 Hz, everything is very smooth. And it is an Ultra Retina XDR display, which is using OLED technology. And we have the same technology for both the 13 and 11-inch versions. Having OLED technology means we have super inky blacks and there's no blooming or light bleed. We have a much higher contrast ratio, so it's 2 million to 1, whereas the 2022 iPad Pro had a contrast ratio of around 1 million to 1. But to increase the brightness, what Apple has done is actually use two OLED panels together, and they're calling this Tandem OLED. So although the peak HDR brightness is still 1600 nits, similar to what we had on the previous generation iPad Pro, when it comes to SDR brightness, what you're going to be using most of the time, then we have 1000 nits of full screen brightness. We had 600 on the previous generation. Honestly speaking, I think this is a beautiful display, probably the best display on any tablet out there, and Apple have done a tremendous job, especially with the brightness. Now, you can get this with the nano texture display option. That is only available on the 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte models. You're gonna have to pay extra for that. And this is gonna reduce reflections massively at the expense of not having as much high contrast and sharpness. Viewing angles will also not be as good, but honestly speaking, if you're using an iPad, you're probably gonna be using it by yourself. Somebody else isn't gonna be seeing it, so I don't think viewing angles are that important. But if you are somebody who uses your iPad a lot outdoors or in an office environment where you're gonna have lots of overhead lights, then this might be a great option for you. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this video so far and you want to see more like it, then do consider subscribing and hit that bell icon so you don't miss future coverage. Now let's talk about the performance. So this is Apple's first product that's powered by the Apple M4 chip. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting them just to jump straight to the M4 and to introduce it on the iPad. And this means that you have up to a 1.5 times faster CPU, up to 4 times faster GPU, and up to 1.2 times faster memory bandwidth compared to the M2 version of the iPad Pro, which is already very, very fast. You've got the 16-core Apple Neural Engine, and models with either 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage will come with a 9-core CPU with 3 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores and 8 gigabytes of RAM. And models with 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte of storage will come with a 10-core CPU with 4 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, one of the key advantages of the M4 chip is the power efficiency. So compared to the M2, you can have the same performance using just half the power, Apple claim. This means that you'll still be able to get up to 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi or watching video. And in my experience of using this over the past few days, the battery life has been very good as it was on my previous iPad Pro. Now, the M4 chip is an absolute beast and it's been able to handle anything that I've tried throwing at it. I was doing some testing in Final Cut Pro, editing some video, and using the scene removal tool, it removed the background instantly. And that raises the age-old question, who needs that much power on an iPad? Well, if you are somebody who needs that much power on an iPad, you'll know who you are. Maybe you do some 3D work and rendering that you want to do straight on an iPad because of just how compact it is. And this, of course, still has iPad OS, which has come a long way since it initially started and was pretty much iOS for a bigger screen. But for most people, including myself, it's not really a replacement for Mac OS. I mean, we still don't have a default calculator app, which is super frustrating. And I was showing you the scene removal tool on Final Cut Pro earlier, which works fine when you have a very clear background. But something that's a bit more complicated, I still had to go back on my MacBook Pro to do the editing for. Now, having said that, WWDC is just around the corner. So I am certain that we're going to be seeing some new features for iPad OS, including lots of AI features. So I think that's something that we're just going to have to hold out for. Now let's take a look at the cameras. So one big change that we've got is that the 12 megapixel ultra wide front camera is no longer in portrait orientation, it's now in landscape. Now this is something that I've mentioned on previous iPad reviews of mine, that when I am taking video calls on my iPad, I never have it in portrait mode. I'm always gonna have it in either the Smart Folio case or the Magic Keyboard. And when it was in portrait orientation, the camera was off to the side, which really wasn't great. Now that it's in landscape mode, it's the perfect position for it. And we do have center stage, so if you do move around, the camera is going to be able to track you. The rear-facing camera hasn't changed too much. It's 12 megapixels, but we do have a new ISP image signal processor thanks to the M4. It supports 4K video up to 60 frames a second. We still have the LiDAR scanner, which is very useful if you are somebody who can utilize that. But we no longer have the ultra-wide camera. This is something that I actually missed in the keynote. Now, I'm assuming this is down to making the device more compact overall. What we do have now is this new adaptive True Tone flash, which makes scanning documents a lot easier, and it's going to spread the light a little bit more evenly by covering shadows and things like that. Now, I generally just scan documents and receipts and things on my iPhone, and just using the flash there, or pretty much any other smartphone, does a decent job anyway, because it removes most of the shadows because the flash kind of just covers everything. Yes, the iPad does a better job of that, but would I have preferred an ultra-wide camera instead of this? I don't know, would you? We've still got 4-speaker audio, so we have great sound on the iPad Pro, and there are also 4 studio quality mics. There's one USB-C port, and that does support Thunderbolt with USB 4. And we now have support for the new Apple Pencil Pro. This looks just like the Apple Pencil 2. The only way you really be able to tell it apart is if you look at the logo at the top. Now, the Apple Pencil Pro does come with some really new and useful features. The first of which is Squeeze. You can just squeeze to bring up the toolbar anywhere on screen. This is so useful, and it's something that once you get used to using it, you'll wonder how you got on without it. What's quite cool is that you can use Squeeze from a distance as well. Check that out. I literally just discovered this right now while making this video. You also get some haptic feedback, which is really nice and intuitive. And the Apple Pencil Pro now also has a gyroscope, which means that you can now roll it. So Apple call this feature the barrel roll. And if you're somebody who likes to do calligraphy, you're absolutely gonna love this. I also really like the unlimited undo. So you can just squeeze and then press the undo button and then scroll through the different stages of your drawing. And the Apple Pencil Pro now also has support for Find My. So you're going to be able to find this bad boy if you lose it. And I'm sure pretty much everybody that owns an Apple Pencil has misplaced it at some point. 99% of the time, it's going to be in between your sofa. Now, a few things about the Apple Pencil. Firstly, the Apple Pencil Pro is only going to work with the new M4 iPad Pros or the new 2024 iPad Airs. It's not going to work with the previous versions. Now, what about if you have an Apple Pencil 2 and you're thinking, I'm going to upgrade? Squeeze feature is absolutely great. I'd love it. But hey, I don't want to spend another £130. Well, unfortunately, the Apple Pencil 2 is not compatible with the new iPad Pros. Apparently, this is because of how the charging mechanism works, as this can now snap on to this very thin frame. It's been designed differently. And because of that, if you do have a USB Type-C Apple Pencil, that will work with the new iPad Pro or the new iPad Airs. Now, along with the new iPad Pro, we have a brand new Magic Keyboard, which this can snap onto. The keys have 1mm of travel, they're backlit. We now have a function row, which is super useful. And we now have a new glass trackpad, which is larger and also has haptic feedback, which is really nice. And we still have USB-C pass-through charging, although the border of it is much slimmer because the new Magic Keyboard is more compact compared to the 2022 version. It weighs a little bit less. Apple doesn't really disclose how much the Magic Keyboards weigh for the iPads. I've tried to look for these everywhere, so I just put these on a scale myself. And the new Magic Keyboard is around 30 grams lighter compared to the previous generation. Now, my argument has always been, my iPad Pro, along with the Magic Keyboard, if it weighs more than the MacBook Air, then personally speaking, based on my usage, I would much rather have that full Mac OS experience on the MacBook Air compared to limiting that on iPad OS on the iPad Pro. Now, yes, I know you get a lot more features on the iPad Pro which are unique to it. The display is better. You can detach it from the Magic Keyboard. You also have support for the pen, etc., etc. But I'm just talking about the compact factor. So I went ahead and weighed the new iPad Pro with the new Magic Keyboard, and it weighs just around 1.25 kg. The MacBook Air weighs 1.24 kg. Now, this I don't think is a coincidence. I think Apple really did try to make this as similar as possible. So now, if you are in that dilemma, should you get a MacBook Air instead of the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, this might make your decision a little bit easier because now they weigh just about the same. Now, that aside, I still think the Magic Keyboard is an excellent piece of technology. It's amazing how the iPad looks like it's floating, but it is still top heavy. So although on a flat surface like this, it's going to be absolutely fine. If you are using it in bed on your lap or maybe on a pillow, then I have found it still does lean backwards. The other thing about the Magic Keyboard is that it's still pricey. This new Magic Keyboard is priced at around £350. That's a lot of money for a keyboard, regardless of how magic it is. Guess what else you can get for £350 or $350? A fully fledged iPad. Yes, the iPad 10th generation is now £350. So when you put that into perspective, I do think that the Magic Keyboard is very pricey, as good as it is. The 11-inch version is around £300. Now, another thing about this new Magic Keyboard is that it's only compatible with the new iPad Pros. It's not compatible with previous generations of the iPads. Now, I guess this is understandable because obviously we have a much thinner iPad now compared to the previous generation. However, the previous generation Magic Keyboard is compatible with the new 2024 iPad Air, if that helps. Now, before we conclude, let's take a look at the price. The good news is that all of the new iPad Pros now start with double the storage, 256 gigabytes instead of 128 gigabytes. For the 13-inch version, if we compare the like-for-like models, the 256, in the US, for the 13-inch version of the iPad Pro, you're going to be paying around $100 more compared to what the previous generation started at. But in the UK, you're actually going to be paying less, around £70, compared to what the 256 version of the 2022 iPad Pro started at. Now, this is probably down to the economy and currency conversion rates and all sorts, but it is good news for UK customers. Usually we get the short end of the straw. And if you want the cellular version, then you are going to have to pay around £200 or $200 more. Now, I will leave some of the latest offers for the new iPad Pros down in the description below, so do check out those affiliate links. And to conclude, who is the iPad Pro for? Now, if you're somebody who uses your iPad primarily for just doodling or watching movies when you're sat in bed or on a plane, then I would say you're better off going for the 13-inch iPad Air. It's around £500 cheaper compared to the 13-inch iPad Pro, and it still has support for the new Apple Pencil Pro 2. But if you are after the most powerful iPad you can buy, then the iPad Pro is it, with its M4 chip and its impossibly thin design. Will you be able to use it to its full capacity? I personally don't know anybody that will be able to use this to its full capacity, but then again, that makes it future-proof. Most people that I know who have an iPad use it for at least 3 to 4 years, maybe longer. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what new software features we get on iPad OS at WWDC. If you want to see coverage from that, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss it. What do you guys think of the iPad Pro? Will you be buying one? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, once again, do smash that like button for me. It really helps with the algorithm. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.